If giving is only generous when it produces a return, was it ever truly giving? That question reaches beyond the amount in your hand and exposes the agreement hidden in your heart. Many sincere people have been taught to approach giving with an invisible contract. I release this money, therefore God owes me favor. I make this sacrifice, therefore God must protect me. I give today, therefore promotion, opportunity, and financial increase must arrive tomorrow. The language may sound spiritual, but the arrangement is commercial. It is not surrender. It is negotiation. So examine the motive. Would you still give if no one announced your name? Would you still serve if no one applauded? Would you remain faithful if the result were delayed, if the benefit came through another person, or if the fruit appeared in a form you did not expect? The issue is not whether faithful actions produce fruit. They do. Seeds matter. Service matters. Discipline matters. Generosity can strengthen people, relationships, and communities. But expecting fruit is different from demanding control. You may participate in the process, but you cannot dictate its timing. You may release the seed, but you cannot hand heaven an invoice. The danger is that a religious act can conceal an unreformed motive. Giving can look like worship while functioning like leverage. It can appear generous while secretly demanding recognition, security, or repayment. The hand may be open while the heart is still holding on. Kingdom giving is not a method of placing God under obligation. It is an expression of stewardship, love, and freedom from ownership. It says, I will manage faithfully, I will give responsibly, I will obey without attempting to control the outcome. We must therefore examine the distorted motives behind giving. We must bring generosity into harmony with existing responsibilities. We must establish wise boundaries, recognize fruit beyond immediate cash, and learn how to test each decision before emotion or pressure makes it for us. Do not begin with the amount. Begin with the heart. Do not ask only, what will I receive? Ask, what is governing my release? That question breaks the hidden contract and restores freedom. But to understand why giving cannot place God in our debt, we must first settle the more fundamental question: who owns what is being given? The question of ownership is hidden beneath every decision to give. If you believe the resource is absolutely yours, you will assume the right to control it, protect it, display it, or exchange it for whatever outcome you desire. But a steward thinks differently. A steward does not claim absolute control. A steward accepts responsibility under authority. And stewardship is larger than money. Your time must be managed. Your abilities must be developed. Your opportunities must be used. Your energy must be protected. Your relationships must be nurtured. Your influence must be directed. Even your words must be governed. Because speech can build what money cannot buy and destroy what money cannot restore. Consider this carefully. You received life before you could manage it. You possessed ability before you understood its purpose. Doors opened that you did not manufacture alone. People invested in you before you had anything with which to repay them. Receiving a resource does not make you its ultimate source. It makes you accountable for its use. Possessiveness forgets this. It says, this is mine, and I must hold it at all costs. From that belief comes fear of loss, pride in accumulation, and resistance to release. When you imagine yourself as the source, every act of giving feels like subtraction. But when you understand stewardship, release can become part of faithful management. However, do not make the opposite mistake. Some people say everything belongs to God and then use spiritual language to excuse disorder. They neglect planning, waste what was entrusted, make promises they cannot keep, and call the consequences faith. That is not surrender. That is carelessness. A steward neither worships resources nor wastes them. A steward manages them. A steward arranges what has been entrusted, preserves what must be protected, develops what can grow, and releases what should serve a purpose. Not hoarding, but management. Not recklessness, but responsibility. This changes the meaning of generosity. You are not a heroic owner rescuing God with your wealth. You are a responsible manager deciding how an entrusted resource can best serve the purpose for which it was given. And because you are accountable, you must consider not only whether to give, but how to give, when to give, why to give, and what responsibilities must remain in order after the gift leaves your hand. Settle ownership, and anxiety begins to loosen. Settle ownership, and pride loses its claim. Settle ownership, and generosity becomes faithful administration rather than spiritual leverage. Once ownership is settled, motive becomes visible, and several counterfeits can now be named plainly. When motive becomes visible, 4 counterfeits appear. They wear the language of generosity, but they are governed by something else. The first is bargaining. Bargaining says, I gave, so now I am owed. The offering becomes a payment toward a predetermined outcome: favor, protection, promotion, healing, or financial increase. Then, when the expected result does not appear on schedule, disappointment becomes accusation. The giver feels cheated because the gift was never released freely. It was a contract disguised as surrender. The second counterfeit is performance. Performance does not ask whether the gift serves a real need. It asks whether the gift will be seen. It depends on applause, recognition, status, and the appearance of spirituality. If the audience disappears, the generosity disappears with it. That is not service. It is image management. The third is guilt. Guilt says yes because it is afraid to say no. It gives to silence accusation, avoid disapproval, or prove moral worth. The hand releases the resource, but resentment remains in the heart. And resentment is often evidence that consent was replaced by pressure. The fourth is fear. Fear gives to prevent punishment, disaster, rejection, or divine abandonment. It treats God not as a trustworthy king, but as a threat that must be paid. Listen carefully. Fear may produce an offering, but it cannot produce freedom. A gift with a hidden invoice is not fully a gift. It is a demand concealed inside generosity. The invoice may be addressed to God, you must repay me. Or it may be addressed to people, you must admire me, obey me, remain loyal to me, or give me access to your life. Either way, the resource leaves the hand while control remains in the heart. Now, this is not spoken to condemn sincere people. Many learned these patterns while honestly trying to obey. They were taught that questions revealed rebellion, that boundaries revealed selfishness, and that hesitation invited punishment. The person seeking God is not the enemy. The manipulation that distorted giving is the enemy. So ask yourself 3 questions. Would I still give without recognition? Would I still obey without controlling the outcome? Can I give freely without violating a clear responsibility? Do not abandon generosity because generosity has been misused. Purify it. Make it voluntary, not coerced. Make it truthful, not performative. Make it purposeful, not impulsive. Release the gift without attaching a secret claim to God or to people. Rejecting bargaining does not require rejecting sowing and reaping. It requires understanding what that principle can and cannot promise. The principle of sowing and reaping is not the problem. The distortion of that principle is the problem. Released actions have consequences. Time can be planted. Skill can be planted. Service can be planted. Honesty can be planted. Money can be planted. Obedience can be planted. What you consistently release into life helps shape what life can later produce. But planting is participation, not control. A farmer places seed into the ground because he trusts a process larger than his hand. He can choose the seed. He can prepare the soil. He can water, protect, and cultivate. But he cannot command tomorrow morning to deliver a mature harvest. His responsibility is faithfulness. The process retains its own timing. That is the difference between confidence and entitlement. Confidence says, my faithful action matters. Entitlement says, because I acted, the result must arrive when I demand it, in the form I selected, and through the person I expected. One is trust. The other is control wearing religious language. Fruit also corresponds to the nature of what is planted. Honesty cultivates trust. Service develops usefulness. Discipline saving builds resilience. Encouragement can awaken courage. Generosity can strengthen relationships and increase a community's ability to carry shared burdens. You cannot plant deceit and reasonably demand trust. You cannot plant disorder and expect stability. You cannot neglect people and then claim a harvest of healthy relationships. And every genuine process contains an interval. Seed disappears beneath the soil before fruit becomes visible. Unseen development does not mean faithfulness has failed. Yet many people panic in the interval. They compare their field with someone else's field. They dig up yesterday's obedience and demand evidence today. They turn delay into disappointment and disappointment into accusation. Do not disturb the seed with anxiety. Do not measure every act of love by an immediate response. Do not make visible proof the condition of continued faithfulness. This is especially important with money. Money given does not automatically obligate an equal or larger cash payment in return. The fruit may appear as strengthened character, deeper trust, restored capacity, shared provision, or an opportunity to serve more effectively. And sometimes you may never see the full effect yourself. Generosity designed to control tomorrow is still anxiety. It gives with one hand while trying to seize the future with the other. But generosity rooted in trust releases both the resource and the demand to govern the result. Plant wisely, cultivate faithfully, wait without manipulation, recognize fruit in all its forms. Sowing is not a spiritual vending machine. It is responsible participation in a process whose outcome you do not own. If timing and visible return are not the primary tests, then the decisive questions must be motive and order. When visible return is no longer the ruler, two deeper tests emerge. The first is motive. Before you ask, how much should I give? Ask, what is governing this act? Is it love or fear? Conviction or pressure? Gratitude or pride? Compassion or the appetite for reward? The hand reveals the action, but the heart determines its meaning. Two people can release the same amount and perform two entirely different acts. One gives freely, seeking the good of another. The other gives to gain influence, public honor, or a guaranteed return. The amount is identical. The government is not. One is generosity. The other is manipulation. This is why amount cannot be the final measure of spirituality. A large gift may conceal vanity. A modest gift may require discipline, restraint, and sincere care. Heaven is not distracted by volume. Character weighs what applause cannot measure. And character is clearest in private. Who are you when nobody announces what you gave? Would you still help if your name remained unknown? Would you still keep your commitment if there were no stage, photograph, title, or public reward? Faithfulness without an audience reveals whether generosity is service or performance. But motive alone is not enough. The second test is order. Does this gift fit within the responsibilities already entrusted to you? Have you considered essential needs, promises, debts, dependents, and the actual resources available? Does the act create greater faithfulness, or does it leave disorder for someone else to repair? Your financial records often answer these questions more honestly than your intentions. A budget reveals practical priorities. Spending reveals appetites. Saving reveals preparation. Giving reveals release. None of these stands alone. Together they show whether your values have become an ordered pattern or remain emotional claims. Now, order must never become a respectable excuse for selfish delay. Some people plan forever because they never intend to release anything. They rename fear as prudence and hoarding as wisdom. That is not stewardship. Order is not designed to suffocate generosity. Order gives generosity structure so it can become consistent, truthful, and sustainable. Remember the balance. Right motive without order can become recklessness. Order without love can become hoarding. Love asks, how can I serve? Wisdom asks, how can I serve faithfully? You need both. Examine the heart. Examine the pattern. Reject the pressure to impress people with an amount. Reject the temptation to hide selfishness behind planning. Let motive purify the gift, and let order protect its purpose. That balance must now enter ordinary life, where generosity and existing obligations often appear to compete. The conflict between generosity and responsibility is often presented as though you must choose one. Either you are a giver, or you are a careful manager. Either you demonstrate faith, or you plan. That is a false choice. Generosity and responsibility are not enemies. They are partners within stewardship. Financial order begins with truth. Know what is available. Identify the obligations that must be honored. Restrain consumption that serves only impulse. Prepare for needs you can reasonably foresee. Then designate resources for generosity so giving becomes part of the structure, not merely a reaction to pressure. You cannot manage what you refuse to examine. Prayer does not remove the need to know where your money goes. Enthusiasm does not create capacity that does not exist. A spiritual moment may inspire a promise, But if that promise ignores rent, food, debt, dependence, or commitments already made, the emotion may pass while the consequences remain. Listen carefully. Intensity is not always obedience. A dramatic sacrifice can look impressive and still be disorderly. If your gift produces broken promises, preventable harm, or resentment toward the person who received it, you must ask whether wisdom was invited into the decision. Planning is not unbelief. Saving is not automatically hoarding. Preparation can preserve your ability to serve when circumstances change. A person who manages well during abundance may remain useful during scarcity. The purpose of order is not to make you fearful of release. It is to prevent today's impulse from destroying tomorrow's assignment. And more income will not rescue unmanaged habits. If confusion governs a little, greater resources may simply give confusion a larger territory. Increase does not create discipline. It reveals whether discipline was already present. That is why consistent generosity is usually built before the emotional appeal arrives. You plan for it. You create room for it. You restrain unnecessary appetites so compassion has resources available. Discipline turns giving from an occasional spectacle into a dependable practice. This principle reaches beyond money. If you serve everyone while neglecting your health, your body will eventually interrupt your service. If you accept every request while abandoning your family, one responsibility will consume another. If you give away all your energy and never renew it, exhaustion will decide what wisdom should have governed. Faithful stewardship protects the whole assignment. It manages money, time, health, presence, energy, and relationships together. It does not use one good act to excuse damage in another entrusted area. So know your condition. Honor your commitments. Prepare wisely. Restrain impulse. Make room to give. Let generosity emerge from order and contribute to greater faithfulness, not leave preventable chaos behind. Financial recklessness is not proof of faith. Sustainable generosity is disciplined love. Yet even an ordered budget can be invaded by unhealthy demands, so faithful giving also requires gates. A life of service is not the same as a life without boundaries. One is directed by love and assignment. The other is often driven by guilt, fear of rejection, or the need to be needed. Both may look generous from a distance, but only one can remain healthy. Boundaries are not walls built to keep compassion out. They are gates through which wisdom decides what should enter, what should leave, and what must be protected. A gate can open, but it does not open merely because someone demands access. This means an honest no can preserve more integrity than a pressured yes. A yes given without capacity may become a broken promise. A yes extracted through guilt may become resentment. A yes offered to avoid conflict may create greater conflict later. Truthful refusal is sometimes more loving than dishonest agreement. Generosity must also distinguish help from repeated rescue. Helping someone through genuine difficulty can restore strength. Continually removing every consequence of avoidable irresponsibility can prevent growth. If your giving allows another person to refuse planning, discipline, work, or accountability indefinitely, you may be relieving pressure without strengthening the person. Love everyone, but do not grant everyone equal access. Compassion does not require unlimited authority over your money, time, energy, attention, or decisions. Access is a stewardship matter. Consent is also essential. Persuasion becomes manipulation when fear, shame, status, or spiritual threat is used to override another person's judgment. A person may surrender money under pressure while never giving freely. That is compliance, not generosity. The giver must be allowed to understand, decide, and answer truthfully. And the boundary must turn inward. You must sometimes say no to yourself, no to impulsive spending, no to performative sacrifice, no to the desire to appear indispensable. If you cannot govern your own appetite for recognition, other people's demands will easily govern you. Before responding to a request, ask 4 questions. Is this aligned with what I am responsible to do? Do I truly have the capacity? Will this help create strength or merely remove pressure for the moment? Can I answer freely and truthfully? These questions do not make you cold. They make your compassion accountable. Protecting your health, family, commitments, peace, and purpose is not selfish when those things have been entrusted to your care. Wisdom does not destroy generosity. Wisdom protects it from coercion, dependency, resentment, and exhaustion. So establish the gate. Refuse manipulation. Tell the truth about capacity. Give from conviction, not compulsion. When love is protected by wisdom, generosity becomes freer, relationships become healthier, and service becomes sustainable. Once giving is freed from pressure and protected by wisdom, its meaning can expand far beyond the transfer of cash. One of the most limiting ideas about generosity is the belief that people with little money have little to give. That reduces human value to currency. It ignores the many resources already entrusted to every person. Money is one form of value. It is not the only form. You can give time. In a world of divided attention, focused presence can restore dignity. To listen without rushing, to remain with someone in difficulty, to give undistracted attention, these acts say, "Your life is worthy of my presence." Time cannot be recovered once spent, which makes intentional presence a serious gift. You can give skill. You may know how to teach, repair, organize, plan, mentor, cook, build, communicate, or solve a problem. When skill is shared wisely, it can do more than provide temporary relief. It can increase another person's capacity. Giving someone an answer may help for a day. Teaching them how to find answers can serve them repeatedly. You can give service. Ability kept private remains potential. Ability applied to a real need becomes contribution. Service turns what you know into something useful to another person. You can give opportunity. You may open a legitimate door, recommend a qualified person, share information, or connect two people whose abilities and needs belong in the same room. No cash changes hands, yet the impact may multiply through lives you never personally reach. You can also give encouragement, truth, and correction. Encouragement can strengthen a weary person. Truth can interrupt confusion. Correction, when offered with humility and care, can protect someone from a costly path. Kindness does not always say what is comfortable. Sometimes love gives clarity. This means your preparation is connected to your generosity. Every skill you develop increases your capacity to contribute. Every discipline you establish makes you more dependable. Every improvement in character makes your help safer to receive. Learning today can become service tomorrow. But do not confuse purposeful giving with indiscriminate activity. Generosity does not ask merely, "What can I release?" It asks, "What form of help best serves this need?" Money may be appropriate. At another time, the wiser gift may be training, presence, access, accountability, or a truthful no. Whatever you give, offer it honestly. Give within your capacity. Give without pretending. Give in a way that respects your primary responsibilities and the dignity of the recipient. You are not excluded from generosity because your finances are limited. Contribution is measured by faithful usefulness, not merely by financial capacity. Look again at what has been entrusted to you. Your hands may contain more value than your bank account can reveal. When the forms of giving expand, the meaning of fruit must also expand. If you have been looking only for money to return, you may have called the field barren while fruit was growing everywhere around you. The problem may not be the absence of fruit, it may be the narrowness of your definition. Change character is fruit. Every faithful act of release can confront possessiveness. It can train gratitude, loosen the fear of loss, and strengthen self-government. Sometimes the first person transformed by generosity is the giver. You thought the gift was leaving your hand to change someone else, but it was also teaching your heart that resources are servants, not masters. Trust is fruit. When your generosity is consistent, truthful, and free of hidden demands, people learn that your help is safe. They do not have to wonder what secret price will appear later. That kind of character strengthens relationships and gives leadership credibility. Trust cannot be purchased, but it can be cultivated. Increased capacity is fruit. Wise assistance does not merely remove today's discomfort. It helps people develop skill, judgment, discipline, and the ability to contribute. When one person becomes more capable and then serves another, the original gift travels farther than the giver may ever see. Community strength is fruit. Shared service and mutual responsibility reduce isolation. People become better able to endure difficult seasons because burdens are not carried alone. One person brings time, another brings knowledge, another brings access, another brings material support. No single gift does everything, but ordered contribution creates resilience. Peace is also fruit. When giving is no longer governed by secret contracts, comparison, or fear, the heart becomes quieter. You can act faithfully without monitoring everyone else's harvest. You can give without demanding control. You can release without living in suspicion. But remain realistic. Generosity does not guarantee gratitude. It does not produce perfect relationships. It cannot force another person to use help wisely. Every recipient remains responsible for their response, just as every giver remains responsible for the integrity of the gift. Faithfulness can retain value even when you never witness the final effect. A word may strengthen someone years later. A skill shared today may serve people you will never meet. Your responsibility is not to control every consequence. It is to act with wisdom, love, and integrity. And do not turn this broader vision into a more sophisticated bargain. Do not begin calculating how much trust, peace, influence, or recognition God and people now owe you. The purpose is to recognize goodness, not to redesign the invoice. See the fruit, receive it with gratitude, but never convert it into entitlement. The principle is now clear, but freedom becomes durable only when it is converted into a repeatable decision process. When a request arrives with urgency, emotion, or an audience, the first act of stewardship is not immediate release. It is pause. Pressure wants speed because speed can prevent examination. Wisdom creates enough space for truth to speak. First, ask the ownership question. What has actually been entrusted to me in this situation? Is the needed resource money, time, skill, access, attention, or influence? Do not assume every problem requires cash. Identify what you are managing before deciding what should leave your hand. Second, ask the motive question. What is directing me? Am I acting from love and conviction, or am I trying to buy approval, silence, guilt, prevent rejection, calm fear, or force a return? If your peace depends on how the recipient responds, a hidden contract may already be forming. Third, ask the order question. What must remain protected? Consider commitments already made, household needs, debt obligations, health limits, family responsibilities, and the work assigned to you. A gift should not create avoidable disorder in areas you are already responsible to manage. Fourth, ask the impact question. What will this help produce? Will it meet a genuine need? Will it strengthen capacity? Will it support someone through a difficult season? Or will it repeatedly subsidize a pattern that refuses responsibility? Relief is sometimes necessary, but relief without development can become a cycle. Fifth, ask the boundary question. Can I give freely and truthfully? Is there manipulation, secrecy, resentment, or violated consent? If you cannot answer honestly, pause again. Then choose the response wisdom supports. Give now. Offer a different form of help. Give a smaller amount you can sustain. Delay until you are prepared. Connect the person with someone better equipped, or respectfully decline. Every no is not selfish, and every yes is not faithful. Record your decisions and review the pattern. Consistent reflection exposes impulsiveness, fear, neglect, and hidden priorities. It also helps generosity become intentional rather than episodic part of your stewardship instead of a dramatic reaction. Finally, release the outcome. Once you have acted with love, truth, order, and consent, do not convert the gift into a claim upon God or the recipient. Do not keep an invisible ledger. Your responsibility was faithfulness, not control. Pause. Identify. Examine. Arrange. Decide. Release. This process unites generosity with wisdom, responsibility with freedom, and compassion with truth. The final task is not to admire the framework, but to choose which government fear, ownership, or faithful stewardship will direct the next act. Now, return to the question that opened this journey. If giving is generous only when it produces the return you demand, was it ever truly giving? Here is the answer. Giving conditioned on control is bargaining. Giving rooted in love and stewardship is freedom. Not performance, but character. Not guilt, but conviction. Not fear, but trust. Not chaos, but order. Not domination, but service. Not reckless sacrifice, but faithful release. Generosity is not measured by how dramatically resources leave your hand. It is revealed by the government directing your heart. If you have been pressured, hear this clearly. Refusing manipulation does not make you selfish. Establishing a boundary does not mean abandoning compassion. An honest no can protect a faithful yes. You are free to pause, examine, plan, and act from conviction. But if responsibility has become your excuse never to release anything, confront that too. Prudence must not become a respectable disguise for possessiveness. A steward protects what must remain, but also releases what should serve. So conduct a private audit. Examine one giving habit and ask what motive sustains it. Identify one disordered responsibility that needs structure. Name one unhealthy demand that requires a boundary. Find one unused capacity, time, skill, access, attention, encouragement that could serve someone well. Examine the motive, arrange the resource, honor the boundary, meet the real need, release the result. The amount may vary, the form may vary, the timing may vary, the visible fruit may vary, but the evidence of faithful generosity remains the same. A free heart operating within wise order. Give voluntarily, manage responsibly, serve purposefully, refuse hidden contracts. Do not attach an invoice to love. Do not give from fear of punishment or hunger for applause. Give because what has been entrusted to you can become useful beyond you. When generosity is purified of bargaining, you do not become less generous. You become more truthful, more peaceful, more consistent, and more free. Faithful giving does not purchase a future. It expresses the character with which the present has been entrusted.